The Philadelphia Eagles have held two very different types of practice in the last 24 hours. One under the lights at Lincoln Financial Field in front of over 40,000 die-hard fans, and the other one, no pads, no hitting, and a quick run through one of the quickest practices of the off-season so far. But here is everything you need to know from both days, featuring clips and takeaways sent in by some of those of you in attendance as well. I said during this week's episode of This Week in Philadelphia Sports that I would make your guys' content the feature of this video, and that is exactly what we're going to do. So here is everything you need to know from the last 2 days of practice, of course supported by the clips that you've sent in. Before we kick things off though guys, as always, if you like this sort of content, make sure you leave a like, hit that big red subscribe button, and drop your opinions on everything we discuss down in the comments below. And another quick heads up, the Eagles kick off their preseason campaign on Thursday. Last year we actually held an alternate live stream, somewhere where you guys could come and hang out and almost have a watch along for the game. So the game would be on in the background, we'd be talking through it and be discussing the game as it happens. We'll be doing that once again this year. So if you don't have tickets to watch the game, if you don't know how you're going to watch it, fear not, we're going to have audio coverage, we're going to have a live stream, some prizes, some giveaways right here on Thursday night at Philly Sports Network. Let's kick things off with the bigger picture. With over 40,000 fans in attendance and the Link roaring on Sunday night, the Eagles were able to raise over $475,000 for autism research, which is just absolutely staggering. I know there was some initial backlash after only hosting one practice and charging $10 for admission, but all of that money went to a great cause. And some things are bigger than football, and knowing that this team pushes so hard to make a difference is a very warming feeling. Secondly is the update that no one really wanted to see. Joe Ostman, the star defensive end of last year's scout team, was carted off the field after picking up an injury during a special teams drill. Now, defensive end depth is already light, so don't be surprised to see Connor Barwin make his return to the Eagles after seemingly having a conditional agreement in place that they would revisit the idea with Howie Roseman after a couple weeks of training camp. Ostman had a great preseason for the Eagles last year after going undrafted, rallying to amass 9 tackles, and at 6'3", 259 pounds, he seemed almost set to take on a much bigger role in year number 2. A guy that was going to come in, maybe be the 4th or 5th defensive end on the depth chart. I would argue above Josh Sweat or Sharif Miller to begin with. Losing him is an absolutely horrible blow for this defensive end depth that, as we mentioned, is already fairly light. So keep an eye out. I'm sure the Eagles will be wheeling and dealing to make sure the position is ready to go. I know there's been a lot of clowny speculation, although I don't think that will happen. Don't be surprised if a slightly lower tier defensive end makes their way back to the Eagles. Shelton Gibson also limped off the field and wouldn't return with what's believed to be an ankle injury, while Boston Scott is also out with an ankle injury on day-to-day terms. The Eagles have also lost cornerback Cravon LeBlanc and linebacker Camu Grugier-Hill to camp injuries in the last 7 days. It will be interesting to see if Doug Peterson does make any changes to training camp. It may even be why the practice was so light on Monday, but only time will tell. But perhaps the biggest takeaway from Sunday evening seems to be just how dominant Miles Sanders looked, to the point where the growing consensus is that by the end of the 2019 season, he will be the team's starting running back, providing what we're seeing now translates into regular season action. Now, it's a bit premature to start calling Sanders the RB1 as of today. We haven't even seen him in preseason yet, but he may well be the most improved player of the offseason, and that's saying a lot, considering that the guy missed OTAs with a hammy injury. He comes in late, he has to get up to speed with everything, but the guy is making jump cut after jump cut. He is explosive between the tackles, and the guy is as slippery as they come. So is there a chance Miles Sanders takes on an RB1 role? Absolutely. Is it going to happen right away? I don't think so. I think the Eagles like the idea of a balanced backfield. They've got something unique in Howard, they've then got something unique in Miles Sanders, and they are the perfect complement to each other's skill set. So I feel like that will be the way it rolls, but there is no denying the potential that this man has, and it's easy to see why the Eagles falling in love with him before the draft process was the worst kept secret in the entire league. Next up, the Eagles definitely gave the people what they wanted. 40,000 in attendance. What could they possibly want to see? Could it start with Wentz and end in Jackson? Maybe. Well, ask and thou shalt receive. The duo were lighting it up all evening long. With dimes down the field, Rasul Douglas was one of the guys burnt in coverage, and some really nice red zone reps early on from Carson Wentz. But it's easy to see at this point, as we continue to hammer it home, that Carson Wentz and Deshaun Jackson may well be one of the best duos in the NFL heading into 2019. I don't think it's a stretch to say that. The rapport they are building right now is almost unrivaled. It is scarily good. You very rarely see inconsistency. Phillies, and it's just an electrifying prospect to see that need for speed filled once again. With KGH sidelined and Nigel Bradham still not participating in team drills, it left Zach Brown and Nate Jerry to pick up the pieces and take first team reps in front of the diehards, and that also carried its way over into Monday's practice as well. Jerry performed well and drew the praise of Jim Schwartz in a presser held just before the practice, and it was also nice to see LJ Fort making the occasional play too, not just for the fact he's called LJ. That every linebacker will need to be on their A game, with preseason rapidly approaching and depth still questionable. If a guy like Fort, Singleton or Jerry can really stand out now, it could carry huge implications as the roster cutdown draws ever nearer. Many presume that Avonte Maddox will have a starting role in the Eagles secondary next year, and it's not hard to see why. Taking CB1 reps in front of the 40,000 fans in attendance, Avonte Maddox proved that although he's undersized, he plays well above his height, breaking up a ball intended for Deshaun Jackson in the end zone. He's coming off of a stunning rookie campaign, and the stage is really set for him to build on it, with training camp proving to be a fundamental foundation. He's absolutely killing it right now. It's been great to see Corey Clement getting some 11 on 11 reps, and even though Monday's practice was a little bit lighter, the running back depth chart is still in complete flux right now, and if Clement can prove he still packs the same punch that he did in 2017, he should be able to secure a roster spot. He had a breakaway run in 11 on 11 drills today, and the Eagles will likely go full steam tomorrow, so keep an eye on Clement's participation to see if he can replicate that when the intensity builds up. And finally, it really hasn't taken long for Jonathan Cyprien to make plays. We said it in day 1, and day 2 was no different. The 29-year-old safety stripped the ball away from the clutches of Josh Adams after the catch to force a fumble, and it's safe to say at this point that he's not just there for depth, he will be competing for a much bigger role in the team. How big that role is will remain to be seen. I've got a feeling it could be working with Andrew Sendejo to be the 3rd and 4th safeties on the depth chart, but I think this is going to be a really important preseason. He's got a point to prove, he's coming off a torn ACL, and Cyprien is back with a bang. But that is it for the takeaways from Eagles training camp. 2 days of practice, 40,000 fans screaming "Fly Eagles Fly." Preseason football is just around the corner. A massive thank you to Patrick Butler, to Chris from VA, to Ace Chapter 1 and to Gail Saunders for their submissions into this video. You guys are great. Make sure guys that you stick around for Thursday night. Eagles versus Titans, it's preseason football. I can't wait, and you can watch along live with me here on the Philly Sports Network YouTube channel. Get yourself some beers, order some popcorn, let's strap ourselves in and have ourselves a fun Thursday night. I'll see you then.